Yeah, boy. Welcome into the playbook for Wednesday, game week Miami. It is now week 12 in the National Football League, so we're moving along. John Rook here. Evan Lazar is also here, as he always is, to start our program. A little bit later on, Chris Perkins, who covers the Miami Dolphins for the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. He'll be here to also kind of fill us in on the Fins, because actually, Evan, I'm surprised to say this. This is a big week for the Dolphins, because if they have any hopes of trying to backdoor their way into the playoffs, they can't afford to stumble to the Patriots. So I think New England has to be on their guard, right?
Yeah, look, it's a tough matchup. I mean, the Patriots haven't won down there since 2019. I think you're going to hear that a lot this week. They're 0-6 against Tua. Tua is 6-0 against them, whichever way you want to look at it. Right. So this is in one of those games where if the Patriots were to pull off a win, it would be an outlier. There's no other way to put it. They really have not been able to beat Miami in Miami, and they especially have not been able to beat Miami with Tua. So It's going to be a tough one.
Doug Kyed from the Boston Herald, he's also going to join us, the Patriots beat writer for that newspaper. And, of course, Russell Baxter will be along to run through Week 12 in the National Football League. So let's kind of start here with the Rams. And look, I'm joining in with everybody else. I saw myriad missed opportunities on Sunday. I also saw an inability or whatever it was they were doing wasn't effective in terms of trying to slow down a Rams attack that just seemed to score for a period of time there, and there was no real apparent adjustment. So I have to look at it as, hey, this is another week where the Patriots coaching staff kind of learned its lesson. At least you hope it learned its lesson. But I'm wondering where the accumulation of these lessons learned is when it is going to start paying off here, because it's late in the year. We know the team is what it is. I think that's a familiar saying. But where's the improvement coming from that side of the ball? Not the performance side, but the coaching and the instruction side. I'm not sure it's where it needs to be, and I'm just being honest here.
Yeah, no, it's a fair assessment. I think a big theme for me this week is sort of the same thing, which is, one, you can't win until you stop losing. Yeah. Right? That's a big one, because when you watch this team right now and you watch their tape, especially on the offensive side of the ball, they didn't really make very many plays on defense this week, but offensively you see a team that in flashes makes plays, right? Like that is capable of moving the football and is capable of scoring points, but they're just offensively sticking on that side of the ball, really both sides of the ball though. They're shooting themselves in the foot too often, where it's not consistent enough to string together 4 quarters of solid football to win a football game against a good team.
Right.
So there's that. And then the other thing that I keep on going back on is an old Belichick cliche, which is that coaches lose games and players win games. And so right now, whether it's coaching or it's performance or execution, they have to get out of their own way. Because I do think, and I know that some people might disagree, but I do think they have the talent to remain competitive. I'm not saying that they have the talent to rattle off 6 straight wins. I'm just saying that they have the talent to be in these games.
See, and I actually thought that, and you're right, I actually thought that much earlier this season. I saw enough there to where this team could be competitive if decisions being made could get them over the hump. It hasn't happened that way.
Yeah, you come into these games, and look, I'm not trying to absolve anybody on the defensive side of the football, but a first-time defensive coordinator and play caller, a rookie play caller on the defensive side of the football in DeMarcus Covington, goes up against arguably the best offensive mind in the National Football League in Sean McVay. I think there's a really good case to be made that McVay is on the short list of play callers on the offensive side of the ball that are at the top of their game right now. Mm-hmm. McVay, Reed, Kyle Shanahan, that's sort of the list.
Well, okay, so while we know that the Patriots coaching staff is young, relatively immature as far as coaching is concerned, certainly together as a group, is it fair to be critical of them doing their job when they're really doing it for the first time and they're kind of learning on a trial by fire? I mean, I ask you this because I think, first of all, I don't think anybody's getting fired. I think that they're going to run with this for another year.
Yeah.
At least that's been my gut feeling all along. I don't think that the Crafts certainly are going to bring in a whole new staff and then rip it apart or rip it to shreds after 1 year. They're going to try to give this an opportunity. What we really need to see more is help within the personnel department, which is another story entirely. I'm kind of curious though. Might there be an evaluation or reevaluation or maybe a reassignment in some of the duties, or depending upon what happens when the the Black Monday occurs in the NFL after the end of the regular season, maybe you think about making some moves to augment what you have and maybe suit your talent.
Yeah, I think the one thing I would say on the defense side of the ball, and they have some guys on defense that have coached a long time in this league.
Yeah.
So it's not Covington's a younger guy.
He was on the staff. People forget he was on the staff last year.
He's been on the staff for
a long
7-8 years.
7-8 years, right? So he's been around.
Yeah.
He knows the culture here.
Yeah, and Jerry Montgomery, their defensive line coach, Drew Wilkins, their outside linebackers coach, Mike Pellegrino, their cornerbacks coach, Brian Belichick, obviously. Safeties. Like, these guys have coached in the league for a while. Like, this isn't necessarily a fully green staff on that side of the football. But the bottom line is on Sunday in this game, and he's going to have it again on Sunday against Mike McDaniel, who's another guy that I would put on that short list of offensive innovators, play design and calling plays and things like that. Sean McVay took him behind the woodshed on Sunday, and it happens. Like, that's going to happen. But like your point, how does he learn from it? Like, how do they evolve from it moving forward? I
want to see something different. I want to see a wrinkle. I want to see an attitude. I want to see an energy. I want to see something that tells me, hey, they're catching on here. I haven't seen that yet, and that's a little disturbing. And I would tell you, maybe it's because they've decided they're going to stay the course and reevaluate it all at the end of the year. If so, then these coaches are the most disciplined coaches I've ever seen in my life, because every season requires adjustments. I mean, my goodness, I've been covering the NFL longer than any of these guys have been alive. And so every season sees adjustments from within. From the coaches, from the players, from the administrators, from everybody. You must adjust to win. If you stay with one thing and you're still doing that same thing at the end of the year, I would tell you, you're losing.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think that's fair. And when you look at this game plan from the Bears week to the Rams week, one of the things that I thought they did that didn't work was they took a lot of the same things they did against Chicago and expected those things to work against the Rams. And in theory, I can understand where you're going with it, because you're like, well, we shut down the Bears. We're probably not going to shut down the Rams with as much success, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
So let's not try to get too cute here. But at the same time, it's just such a different matchup. You have a rookie quarterback in Chicago versus a 16-year veteran in Matthew Stafford with the Rams, who I believe Stafford's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Mm-hmm. I think he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So you have an experienced quarterback that's really, really good. You have two receivers in Kupp and Nakua who are really, really good, and also are tough matchups for you just because of their size and their ability to create yards after the catch. And both those guys are big, tough dudes to tackle in the open field, and they're a little bit smaller in the cornerback room. So it's just a difficult matchup in that aspect. And then you also have all of McVay's bells and whistles, the motions and the bunches and the nasty looks and things like that we can get into. So all of that stuff, is problematic. And the biggest thing that I just learned from watching Bill Belichick is that you have to take something away from the opponent. Like, you can't let them do it all.
And that's been, to me, the biggest fail of the coaching staff all year.
Yeah.
They haven't taken away the one thing you need to take away. The decision last week, and again, I'm probably just piling on here, but the decision to play Christian Gonzalez on the short side of the field, the boundary side, if you're wondering what the terminology means, because you hear that term a lot nowadays, and to not have him either take out Cooper Kupp or Puka Nakua was mind-boggling. Now, I guess I understand in principle what they were trying to do, but at halftime you should have known because of the first half that Nakua had. You should have known, I think we need to make a change up here. They didn't do that. And so you got to give them something they're not expecting.
Yeah.
Sean McVay and the Rams reacted. And that's why after the first couple of drives, they punched the Patriots right in the nose.
Yeah. The Gonzalez stuff, and I went on this yesterday, and I understand people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. I didn't think the coverage plan with Gonzalez was all that bad. The main reason being, and I've talked to some people about this that have coached in the league, and so I feel pretty confident in saying it at this point. When you play a team like the Rams, who use a lot of motion and use a lot of bunch formation, it's very difficult to play straight man-to-man against teams like that, because what they're doing is they're creating picks, they're creating free release, they're creating leverage with all of these different things that they're doing.
I understand all of that, but isn't that what audibles are for? Isn't that whoever's calling the signals on the defense, isn't that what that's for, based on what they come out and line up? So, and I know that they went back and forth between man and zone. They played both defenses against the Rams, but it seems like they were caught in the wrong spot every time they needed to be in a man situation. They were caught.
Yeah.
And it was like they were caught flat-footed. They were reactionary.
Yeah.
Instead of, proactive. And that's where I want to see. I want to see proactive, not reactive. And we haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, I get everything you're saying. I just schematically, and I'm not trying to take a shot at you, but schematically I feel like
you can take a shot at me. I don't care. It's fine.
It's a lot.
Right here, you go. Come on.
It sounds logical to just say Nakua's got it going today. Let's put Gonzalez on Nakua. Like, it sounds logical, and I think sometimes there's a lot to be said for the fact that the simplest thing is the right thing in football. But as logical as it sounds, in practice, it's not as easy as it sounds, if that makes sense.
Sure, and no, I understand it. I get it all. I think the bottom line is what they really need is they need another cover corner. They need somebody else that's capable.
That's my biggest takeaway from this game, because go back to it. Go and watch early on in this game. What was happening is that they were starting Gonzalez on Nakua.
Sure.
And then McVay was motioning him across the formation into bunch alignments and then releasing him out of the bunch alignment at the snap. So there's no time for communication or switching or whatever. And once they snapped the football, Nakua was running into somebody else's zone and leaving Gonzalez, right? So then Gonzalez had to pass him off to other people.
Yep.
And now what happens is you started with Gonzalez on Nakua, but you're ending with Marco Wilson on Nakua instead.
Yeah.
And that is all McVay, right? Like, that's all scheme.
Okay. I would have been proactive with that. How did the Patriots beat the Rams in Super Bowl 36?
Super Bowl 36? Oh, man, that's going back a ways.
Yes, it is. Is that before you were alive? I'm sorry.
I was at it, actually, so no, definitely not before I was alive. All right.
Okay, but I'm asking sort of rhetorically, all right?
Yeah.
So how did they beat them? Because they lined up and they smacked them in the mouth.
Yeah, but that team was different. Like that, from what I understand of that Rams team, and I don't study that Rams team like I study these Rams teams, but like the team back in 01, in the way you played, like it was stagnant offense, right? They were an 11 personnel team. They came out in 3 receiver. It was Bruce to one side, Holt to the other side, and they just played football, right? Like this team would nowadays, and we're going to see it again on Sunday with Miami. So this is sort of my big thing of the week is like, you stunk against motion last week, so you better figure it the frick out.
Better figure it out because Miami's going to motion you to death.
Yeah, they're going to do the exact same thing that the Rams just did.
That is correct.
And so those teams back in the day, they didn't motion like these offenses do now. They didn't have that type of, this is more innovative and more new agey. I hate using that phrase, but that's what it is. Right?
Yeah.
I'd say in the last 5 to 10 years, motion at the snap, not shifting, but motion at the snap, jet motion and missile motion and things like that. All that type of stuff has really taken off, I would say, in the last 5 years in football. So it's not the first time they've ever seen it, and it certainly looked like it was the first time they'd ever seen it on Sunday. So I'm not letting them off the hook. I understood the philosophy of the game plan. I just think execution, and the coaches have to take responsibility for execution as well. Like that it's on them to get the guys ready, and they weren't ready.
Hey, Marine, for some reason the cursor isn't coming up on the call thing here, so you may have to bring the call. Did you turn it off? Oh, technology.
Do you need help?
I might. Wait, is that it?
There you go.
Oh, my God, it works now. He's trying to save battery power,
Smart by him. Not so smart by the old man over here.
It's what happens when you don't win, You got to watch, the batteries that you have and make sure that you're taking them out of the things that you're not using.
On the on-air like.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Hey, I'm just.
You lose focus in this game for 1 minute, John.
I know. I'm just happy to be here. Chris Perkins covers the Miami Dolphins for the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. Kind enough to join us for a bit here inside the playbook. Hey, Chris, it's John and Evan here in Foxborough. How are you today?
Hey, guys, I'm doing good, man. The Dolphins have won back-to-back games for the first time in almost a year.
How about that?
People down here are giddy. They don't know what to do right now.
I can only imagine. But I would tell you that there's an opportunity, a real opportunity, based on a couple of things that we've already talked about. Number one, the Patriots got themselves motioned to death this past week against the Rams, which certainly I think would be a nice clue for the Dolphins in terms of trying to formulate an attack, number one. But number two, Dolphins have it all over the Patriots right now. They've just, they got, I don't know if Tua has cast a spell. Mike McDaniel has cast a spell. I don't know what it is, but this Patriots team cannot beat that Dolphins team unless this Dolphins team, I think, shoots itself in the foot. What are your thoughts?
It's an interesting dynamic. I believe that Mike McDaniel is 4-1 against the Patriots, but we all know what happened that last game, right? Jalen Polk is like a half foot, literally, from delivering a victory.
Yep.
So, the Dolphins have to be wary. But, the strange thing with the Dolphins right now is they're kind of going through this metamorphosis. And, they came into the season with this high-scoring, big play passing game that they've used the previous two seasons. And it was Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle. Well, now it's Tua, Devon Achane, and Jonnu Smith. Mm-hmm. And really teams have taken away the deep ball by playing the two high safety look, pressing them at the line of scrimmage. And so the Dolphins have switched, and now they're trying to go with the underneath stuff, the short control passing game to Achane and Jonnu Smith, and then, using a running game. So we'll see what happens here. But, the Dolphins, and I'll tell you this also, the motion had been cut down a little bit, and that was in the road games against Buffalo and the Rams. I'll be interested to see how much that motion comes back here in a home game. It kind of came back a little bit last week, but I'll see how much. It'll be interesting to see how much they rely on that again this week.
Is there any chance at all that this game is played tighter to the vest than maybe we think, like the 15-10 game back in September?
It could. I don't know what to expect from these Dolphins now. Now that they're undergoing this change, it used to be you would pencil these guys in for 20-something points, and maybe they go up to 30 or 40, and kind of now you kind of pencil them in for, maybe 17 points, 20 points, and you see if they can get up to like 27. So it's a new era of Dolphins football, and, again, it's a little more measured, a little more conventional. So I really don't know what to expect from this offense.
Well, the fact of the matter is that this is a completely different team when Tua is quarterbacking, and I think that's even obvious to those who are, really not familiar with the Miami Dolphins. So with Tua back and seemingly the entire offense playing with more confidence, how does this team continue to try to build to see if they can't play their way back into legitimate playoff contention?
I think the offensive key is going to be this run game and the controlled passing game. Again, Devon Achane at running back and Jonnu Smith at tight end are going to be the stars. They're still going to look for opportunities to hit Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle deep because really that's what makes this offense dangerous. Without that element, you kind of respect this offense, but there's no fear. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be very interested to see what happens there as far as this offense. Defensively, looking ahead, you've got to stay healthy, and that means Zach Sealer and Calais Campbell on the defensive line, and Jalen Ramsey there at safety, and probably Javon Holland also back there at safety. Jordan Poyer has really struggled this season. So that's really the way ahead for this team is that they've got to keep their key players healthy, and then they've got to develop their new identity and figure out who they are offensively, but they're still kind of searching when you look ahead to find out who they are, because they've switched from the team that entered the season.
Yeah, that's actually kind of my biggest question about the Dolphins, because, you brought up a great point. They've gone to more of an underneath game, since Tua's come back here. But I'm wondering if they might not try to get back to the way things were earlier in the season. They didn't have a whole lot of success with that against the Patriots back in September, but they certainly were a little bit more dynamic in offense like that. Do they need to get back to that in order to have long-term success, or, let's face it, even immediate success as they try to get back into the playoff picture?
Yeah, I kind of think that they do, because, the one thing that we have not seen from this offense, this offense now is going on a lot of 10 and 11 and 14 play drives. And that requires you to be almost flawless, right? Don't get behind the chains and face a 1st and 15. Against Buffalo, Raheem Mostert had a third quarter fumble that they never recovered from. Against Arizona, Tua fumbled 3 times. Heck, Tua had the snap go through his hands that counted for a safety in a 28-27 loss. Mm-hmm. So, there's all these little things that this team has to clean up. And when you have to go, station to station, those things crop up a lot more. That big play, that 180-yard touchdown, that removes a lot of the stink, from the mishandled, the fumbles and the mishandled snaps. So, that's one thing that moving forward, I think that the big play is a necessity, not only to help you come back if you're down 10 in the fourth quarter, but also, if you lose a fumble or have an interception or whatever, that big play can help you erase that mistake very quickly.
Right. You actually wrote, I think, for the Sun Sentinel this week about how, this offense has evolved, but it's still probably not good enough for this team to get to where it wants to go. Is that still accurate, you think?
I think it is. And look, here's the Dolphins situation. They're sitting here at 4-6. I'm thinking that 9 wins probably gets you in the AFC. So the Dolphins are looking at having to win 5 of their last 7 games.
Right.
The toughest 3 games on the schedule are at Green Bay on Thanksgiving night, at Houston, and at home against San Francisco. So, you're probably going to have to win one of those games, and then your remaining 4 games, you got the Jets twice, and you got the Patriots on Sunday, and then you've got Cleveland also. So, the path is there. They don't have to beat Houston and Green Bay and San Francisco. Mm-hmm. If you win those other 4 games, then you only have to beat one of those 3 teams. So that's the path. But is that offense ready? Is the offense ready to take them there? I don't know. You might need more help from the defense than you would have needed last year or 2 years ago.
Makes sense.
Chris, just a couple of questions. I do want to talk about the defense here in a second, but I want to stick with McDaniel because I feel like there's a lot of narratives about him and about his coaching future in Miami in terms of how he's been able to adjust and how he's been able to have the offense be productive throughout the course of the season, late in the year specifically. What have you seen from McDaniel this year, and where do you kind of stand with him as the Dolphins head coach?
I'm still wait and see. I do give him credit for going away from this, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle-based offense, recognizing that you're really stuck in the mud, that teams have figured this out. They're going to play that too-high safety look, and they're going to take that deep pass away. There's no reason to keep forcing it. Go to something else. That's good recognition by Mike McDaniel. But I still need to see just general leadership, head coach chops. This is his first head coaching job. This is his first time calling plays, so there's a lot on his plate. Here's a guy who, I'm trying to think of the numbers. I think they came into the season 7-12 on the road. They're 2-3 now, so that would make them 9-16 on the road. They're 4-10 in December and January. So that's a couple of big hurdles right there. That you as a coach. The better teams in the league are going to be around 500 on the road, and you're certainly going to have to know how to win games in December and January. So, Mike McDaniel is improving, but there's still some questions he has to answer.
Yeah, and on the other side of the ball, since the Dolphins' offense is definitely more exciting to talk about, I think sometimes for some people. But for the defense, I believe is this 3 defensive coordinators already for Mike McDaniel, right? That's correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and just what have you seen from Anthony Weaver, and do you feel like they finally found an answer there at DC?
Oh, yeah, Weave has been great. Now, he has been outstanding. I like the way that he has used Jalen Ramsey specifically. Ramsey, the only player that Ramsey has shadowed has been DK Metcalf, but what they're doing with Jalen Ramsey, they're getting him close to the ball, and they're using him to extinguish the biggest threat on that specific down and distance. So, 1st and 10 from the opponent's 20-yard line, Ramsey might be lined up on an outside receiver. 2nd and 2 from the 28, he might be lined up on the slot receiver because that's where the team goes in those short yardage situations. 1st and 10 from the 40, he might be lined up in the slot and he might be blitzing. He's been good against the run. He's been able to defend slot receivers, outside receivers, tight ends, everything. So that's one thing that I like about Anthony Weaver that Vic Fangio did not do last year. He's using Jalen Ramsey kind of as that Swiss Army knife. A few other things, you're seeing Calais Campbell and Zach Sealer as down linemen moving all over the place. That's another good thing. And the pass rush it's pretty much been non-existent for the Dolphins because Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb have pretty much been out all year. Chubb out all year with the knee that he sustained on New Year's Eve last season, and then Jalen Phillips, he had the Achilles last year on Black Friday. He came back and played, the first 4 or 5 games this year and had a knee injury. So you don't have Chubb or Phillips, but they've been able to get decent pressure on quarterbacks, not sacks, not finishing the play, but decent pressure. Chop Robinson, the first-round pick, has been coming on the last 3 weeks. Here's the other thing about Anthony Weaver, and this defense has been good. They were the number 10 defense in the league last year under Vic Fangio, and they've been pretty much just as productive. If the defense continues trending in this direction, Weaver might get a head coaching job. I think he's interviewed twice for head coaches spot. So, that's kind of the down thing. It's like the better Weaver does, the bigger chance that you're going to be on your 4th defensive coordinator in 4 years next year, because that guy could get a head coaching job.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because when I looked up his information, sort of his bio this week, he's got sort of the resume, former player turned coach, 44 years old. Like, we got one of those here in Gerard Mayo.
He's right in that demographic.
Yeah, so he's kind of got those boxes checked. So it's interesting. You mentioned Chop Robinson there as well. It does seem like PFF pressures and all that kind of stuff. It feels like he's starting to come on here a little bit.
Yeah, and what you're going to see this week with Chop, Chop. Here's the funny thing about Chop. Even in college, he had a high pressure rate, but he didn't finish. He didn't have a lot of sacks. And you always heard, well, he's got a big win rate, but it's kind of like, yeah, but he's not finishing the plays. That's exactly what we've seen here, that he's got the good win rate and all that kind of stuff, but he wasn't finishing plays. He wasn't actually getting the sacks. He started to do better the last couple of weeks. I think he's had 2 sacks in the last 3 games, if I'm not mistaken. But one thing that you're going to see on Sunday that they've been doing is they've been lining him up out wide, kind of that wide 9 position where you're outside the offensive tackle's outside shoulder. And they say what that does with Chop's quick first step, that gives him a better option of going inside or outside. Mm-hmm. He has a little more room to operate. It gives him, a two-way option there. So look for that with Chop and see if he continues to improve, because that's a big part of the defense. They need his pass rush. They need his pressure on quarterbacks. And by the way, the Dolphins are pretty impressed by Drake May. I'll tell you that. But they need his Chop Robinson's pressure on Drake May to have an effective game plan.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, fair enough. Big picture here real quick, Chris. Do the Dolphins need to finish strong to, help save jobs? And I know that there's been rumors about the GM and everything else going on this week, in South Florida. What are your thoughts in that regard?
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation. So for me, I say never move the goalpost. The definition of a successful season coming into the year was winning a playoff game.
Yep.
At this point, it looks like you're going to have a strong finish just so you can go get your teeth kicked in the cold weather in Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, wherever. So, yeah, jobs are on the line. This has been a disappointing season. They've underachieved. But here's the thing. If they come back, if they win 9 games and get a wild card berth, I don't know that the general manager, Chris Greer, loses his job. And to me, these things don't happen in a vacuum. There's the front end of it where, okay, you say that that Chris Greer is gone, but the new GM will probably have to be able to work with Mike McDaniel and Tua. Like, they aren't going anywhere. It doesn't appear, unless it's just an absolute disaster of a finish. Then maybe Mike McDaniel gets fired, but but you're going to bring in the new GM, and then you're going to have the same quarterback and the same coach.
Yeah.
And then that's the front end of the problem. And on the back end, well, who are you going to hire as GM? There's a lot of guys out there, but is everybody going to want to come and work in these constraints, with this offense and everything like that? So I think that Mike McDaniel almost certainly stays. Tua, like 99%, will be back. Chris Greer, I would say let's see how the season finishes. I would say right now he's probably about 50-50 coming back at GM.
Okay, well that's actually information there.
More encouraging, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say. So let's also just cut to the chase right here. How damaging would a loss to New England be?
Oh,
did we lose him?
sounds like it.
I think we may have lost him. Did he just? Yeah, he just kind of like popped. I didn't hit anything, Matt. I promise. But okay.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. Yep.
Oh, you're there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. We got you.
So you asked about a loss to the Patriots.
Yeah. What would that do to their chances?
It would hurt them severely, and the fan base would be really, really upset. But here's the thing. I'm calling this season right now the race to the 9. 9 wins or 9 losses, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what it is. So
sure.
You would still have a chance if you took that loss to the Patriots, but you would have to be pretty much flawless down the stretch. And it would be you could overcome it, but it would be a really, really tough thing going to Green Bay on a short week for a Thanksgiving game night, which is probably a loss. Then you would have back-to-back losses. You could recover, but it would be really, really, really tough.
Yeah, I would definitely tend to agree with that one. It should be interesting as well. All right, Chris, thank you so much for the time today. Really appreciating you're spending a little time with us today to bring us the lowdown on what's going on.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
You got it. Chris Perkins, at Chris Perk, P-E-R-K, on X, if you want to follow him and get his latest on the Dolphins there. I'm all tongue-tied here because I'm trying to decide which way I wanted to go with the next question. I'm like, he's been with us long enough. We don't want to burn him out too much. He's having to deal with the dregs of the NFL here, with the Patriots and all.
No, that was good stuff. I definitely...
Good insight.
Yeah,
right?
It's a fascinating team. It's not all that different in my mind to what's going on in the Meadowlands right now with the New York Jets, where you look at the roster and you say, this is a really talented football team. Mm-hmm. They definitely have, I don't know about depth because I don't know the team as well as I know the Patriots, but in terms of top-end talent, Miami's high-end talent is just as good as anybody. I mean, Tyreek and Jalen Waddle is one of the best receiving duos in football.
No question.
The quarterback's pretty good. They have some guys on defense, Ramsey, Calais Campbell, Zach Sealer's a very, very underrated football player on the interior of their defensive line, one of those sneaky good players. So you put all this together and you look at the GM and you're like, well, he's put together a pretty good roster here. But I think the one thing that stands out to you whenever you watch this Dolphins team is the trenches. Like they, especially on the offensive side of the ball, when it gets later in the year, when it gets colder and opponents get tougher.
They're not conditioned.
Yeah, they don't feel like they win in the trenches against the good teams. Now, that's probably not going to apply to the game as much on Sunday, but when they play the Buffaloes, the Baltimores, the Kansas Cities, they lean on the Dolphins.
The championship level teams.
They lean on them, and they don't have enough physicality to pull out of it.
Patriot fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots, Toyota. Let's go places. A couple of quick ones then before we let you go here, Ev.
Sure.
Number one, the biggest news that came from practice today for the Patriots was Cole Strange's return.
Yes.
How quickly do we expect him to be reinserted into the lineup?
Well, honestly, John, I didn't think Christian Barmore would be reinserted in the
lineup.
lineup.
How many? He got
21.
20 snaps? 21 snaps?
Yeah. So they're going about this maybe a little bit differently than the old regime would have, than Bill would have. I feel like Bill Belichick was really big on stretching out that 21-day window and giving guys time to ramp back up. These guys, it seems like they feel like ramping up is best in game. Let's get
which to me flies right in the face of the entire philosophy around Drake May to start the year.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to see what you got, let the guy play.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you just lit me up. You just lit me up.
That's
man.
what I'm here to do. We're here to talk.
We're here to talk.
Look, I get it, and I don't know about Strange if he's going to be ready to play on Sunday. I always think it's really difficult in terms of trench play to come back because you're dealing with the position where fundamentals and technique is the name of the game. So when you get into the trenches, if your pad level is high, if your hand placement is off, if your feet aren't right, you're just going to be in trouble. And I thought on Sunday, as great as it was to see Barmore back out there, I thought there were a couple of instances where his pads were getting up a little bit and he was getting moved off the ball. And that all comes back to reps and drills.
Yeah,
and
I was happy to see him back out there. I wasn't totally surprised that he wasn't terribly effective. It was nice to have his presence out there, if nothing else. But now you want to start to see improvement, slow, steady improvement. And when Strange gets back out there, my biggest deal is, okay, so he's been training a little bit at center. That's been fairly well documented thus far.
Yeah, he was snapping today.
Right? So if he was snapping today, do we actually see him line up at center? What do they do with Brown in the instance? Or do we see him at guard? And where would this team be best served right now, considering the way that the offensive line has taken us on this mad journey around the globe this year?
Yeah, they seem to really like Michael Jordan at left guard. He's been pretty much there since week 1. Of the season, one of the few guys that's been consistently there. But with that being said, when I watch the film, I see him struggling out there quite a bit, especially in the run game. Just really doesn't have the upper body power and strength to sustain blocks. It's not so much that his initial movements are terrible, but he gets thrown off blocks easily, right? Later on. So a guy will pick his gap to run behind him, and then he gets 3 yards down the field and he's shed, and it's stuff. So I look at Michael Jordan at left guard and say that that's probably the spot that they could use Cole Strange at the most. And I would also say that, center in this offense, there's a lot of mental stuff that goes into making the line calls and getting the configuration correct and the mic points and all that kind of stuff.
That's why I asked the question. Would you be putting too much on his plate on his initial time back after being out for a year?
Yeah, I mean, granted, maybe that's what he's been doing behind the scenes, and I know Gerard Mayo said today that David Andrews has been helping him out with learning the intricacies of playing center, and I'm assuming a lot of that is mental because he's not been able to practice in terms of Strange, so it can't be physical that David Andrews is helping him. So maybe he has a good grasp of that, and Ben Brown came in here and in 3 days was making the line calls against the Houston Texans so with a rookie quarterback in his first ever start. So maybe we're making too big of a deal out of that. I'll allow for that, but at the same time, I don't think Ben Brown has been a liability
No.
It hasn't been great.
Considering where you got him, and you picked him up, it was, it wasn't quite a street free agent, but he was damn close.
Yeah.
I think he's done remarkable.
Yeah, I would say he's, for the most part, has been passable, has been functional.
Sure.
So I wouldn't necessarily mess with that too much.
No, I'm kind of on that line as well. And I know that there's, a certain faction of people that are already out there talking about, what you're going to do when free agency comes around, what you might do when the draft comes around. I was looking at X earlier today, and there's a lot of chatter about T. Higgins and, potential wide receivers and the free agent market. And look, I don't really want to get too much. I'm kind of like Fred in this regard, okay? Next year's next year.
Yeah.
We're still in this year, and you still have to worry about
way.
developing who you have here. But
oh,
is it worth keeping an eye toward? I mean, do you send signals? I mean, what do you do here to make sure that you're not caught flat-footed? Because that's my biggest fear with player personnel within New England. And until we fix this problem, until we see Elliott Wolf can do it, I'm going to have this doubt in my head. I want to know that, they're doing the right things in order to basically smooth the runway out for someone to come in this way and catch passes from Drake May.
Yeah, I hear you. I think the biggest thing that they could do, and I'm not trying to cop out here, but I think the biggest thing that they can do is keep Drake playing well like this.
Okay.
Because
that's not a cop-out.
No.
That's a good answer, actually.
They have to attract the free agents, right? And the best way to attract a T. Higgins or to attract an Amari Cooper or whoever the receiver that they're going after is, and I mentioned Cooper just because of his time with the Browns and in this system and with this coaching staff in Cleveland. These guys that are going to be free agents, you need to show them that Drake May is the real deal and that they have a quarterback to come here and play with, because the reason in my mind that Calvin Ridley is not a Patriot is because the Patriots didn't have a quarterback.
Right.
And he's thinking and I understand Will Levis is not good either, but he's thinking I'm a receiver. I need to have a quarterback that can get me the football. I don't even know who's going to be throwing the football to me in New England. Mm-hmm. So if the money's equal, I'm going to go someplace else. And that's ultimately what ended up happening. Brandon Ayuk had no desire to come here because the Patriots weren't an attraction. They weren't a draw. So if you keep Drake May playing the way that he is playing, people are going to want to come and play with that player. Maybe not more than Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, but when you get into the dregs of the league, you're going to have the quarterback, and these other teams might not necessarily have that. So I think that, there's a lot of talk about what's to come in the offseason. There's a lot of talk about this coaching staff and if they're going to stay the course with this coaching staff or if there are going to be changes. The one guy that I really feel, I continually feel strongly about, even more so, is retaining Alex Van Pelt. I think Alex Van Pelt's done a really fine job with Drake May.
I'm not going to argue with that point. I've known Alex for a long time, a number of years. And in this regard, he deserves an opportunity to continue working with Drake, number one, developing his play skills, number two, and then probably 2A, getting more talent in here.
Yeah.
And then we can see what he truly is capable of doing, because I think we all know they've been told the best way to go about it right now is to play this a little bit more close to the vest, because we extend ourselves, we're really going to pratfall. But now what we want to do is try to build toward a certain level. And we've seen that from day one, whether we agree or not with the whole Drake May philosophy. The point is that he's playing now. He's showing well. We're getting, bonnets and kudos thrown his way from, analysts all over the NFL. So that buzz is starting to catch hold, and I'm 110% in this corner. Yeah, do whatever you can to keep him playing well,
right,
so that way you can score like you need to score in the offseason.
It's just a huge developmental time for Drake May from going from year one to year two in the NFL, and one of the myriad of mistakes that they made with Mac Jones was Josh McDaniels goes to the Raiders after Mac's rookie year, and Matt Patricia's named the offensive play caller his second season, and that was really the beginning of the end for Mac Jones in New England.
It was.
And Drake's way more talented than Mac. I'm not trying to make a comparison player to player, but right now, AVP has Drake May playing great ball. He has him tied together, is what I would call it. Yeah. Eyes, and mechanically, he's going the right places with the football. He's playing on schedule. He's playing in rhythm. His feet look great, which was obviously a big thing in the draft, was his footwork and his mechanics. And right now he looks like he is tethered together by the offensive coordinator. And if you start pulling things out of that Jenga tower, you're just asking for things to regress, right? You're asking for the UNC footwork to come back. You're asking for him to stop, seeing blitzes and reading field correctly and all these things that we see him doing right now at a high level. I would stay the course with the offensive staff for right now. I would say Van Pelt is somebody that I think has done a really great job. I also wouldn't lose sight of their quarterbacks coach, T.C. McCartney, to today Tom Pelissero named as an up-and-coming coach in the NFL on the offensive side of the ball.
And as a potential replacement somewhere down the line, if the dominoes fall the right way when Black Monday gets here.
I just think that T.C. Is someone that I'm going to try to do some more reporting on because he's someone that I think is close in age to Drake enough and has played quarterback himself, not at the pro level, but in college, and is clearly, every time that May is asked about the coaching, he obviously talks a lot about AVP, but he's always is careful to mention T.C. McCartney as well. So I think there's a lot of good things going on in that quarterback room right now.
I really like the analogy of likening the Patriots to a Jenga tower.
Yes. I'm big on this analogy, and I can't. Do you know Dave Damashek with NFL Network?
I know who he is.
I can't take claim, but Dave is the original Jenga tower guy, and I loved it since the day that I heard it, where he usually talks about it with players.
Yeah.
So, think of the Jenga tower, like Jawan Bentley gets pulled out, and then Christian Barmore gets pulled out, and
and you're pretty soft in the middle.
Yeah.
The whole
now
thing.
Now
it's
the whole
good
thing
analogy.
is wobbly.
It's wobbly. It's a really good analogy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of that. What is that? The Popeyes chicken commercial where the guy's pulling out, the Jenga pieces one by one until someone puts that big, chicken wing or whatever in his face and just it's all gone. That's what I see when I think of that. So I like Jenga. Jenga's fun.
It's a fun game.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. What do you think, Marine? Jenga?
You do Jenga?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Show some talent. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you.
Anytime.
All right. The one and only Easy Lazar, Evan Lazar, here on the program. Hey, easy to drink, easy to enjoy, Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. And if you want to spend Black Friday, talking about Black Monday already, right? But if you want to spend Black Friday weekend watching football instead of waiting in line, well, this month, Bob's is unboxing unbeatable values for your home all month long, so you can skip the phony sales, stock up early on everything from sofas to bedroom sets to stocking stuffers and plenty of what they call wow-worthy gifts, too. Stop in and see how much you can save when you dare to compare with Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. All right. It took me a little long to get to it today, but 855-PATS-500 is the toll-free telephone number, but you probably know that already. 855-PATS 500. You can also hit us up online. We've already got emails coming in. We'll read some of those in a bit. It's podcasts, plural, PODCASTS, podcasts at patriots.com. You can also hit me up on X at JR Broadcaster if you like to do that as well and want to go that route. We're going to visit with Doug Kyde coming up in about 10, 15 minutes. When he joined us, Russell Baxter will join us at the top of the hour. And so now we've got some time for you. And so because of that, it looks like Patty's been hanging in. He's got a little time on everybody else here. So Patty and Agawam, you're up next. Thanks for hanging in, bro.
What's going on, Mr. Legend? To steal a phrase from Eldred. What's going on?
Whenever he says that, I laugh internally. I've always thought, well, I'm a legend in my own mind, right? Just somewhat kiddingly, but when Eldred says that, I got to admit, it actually feels like there's some authority behind it.
Moves a little bit.
Yeah. The needle moves. Shut up, Marine.
No, you're not a legend, John.
No, it's all right. It's all good. I love talking to you guys. You guys are the best.
So I just wanted to throw something out there about the Hall of Fame and make a prediction.
Yeah, I was going to ask Evan about that, but we got actually talking into football stuff. But we should mention, of course, that the semifinalists for the 2025 class of the Hall of Fame includes 3 significant Patriot names, not the least of which are Rodney Harrison, Adam Vinatieri, and who's the third one?
Vince Wilfork.
Thank you, Vince. How could I forget? Holy smokes! Yeah, those are the three guys on the list. Now they'll boil it down to the finalists, I think, in another month. I think it is, and then of course the class is probably going to be somewhere around 4 or 5. I'm going to be stunned, Patty, if one of those guys didn't get in. And frankly, they all three deserve it. I would hope for two to get in. And here's my thing: the Patriots' run of dominance, since 2001 is significant to the point where they have been underserved. It took, I think, the Steelers of the 70s and even the Niners of the 80s a few years to really, get their due. But the Patriots are still owed, I think, some representation in the Hall of Fame based on their 2-decade run. And I know that there's a significant factor of media as well as, potential ownership, tied to, NFL ownership in other teams that still are butthurt over, things like Spygate and Deflategate, for lack of a better phrase. And all I'm going to tell you is that, look, forget all that stuff. If you are a fan of Buffalo or you are a fan of Kansas City, or let's even worse, let's go a step further. You're a fan of the Eagles, who the Patriots beat, the first time around, or the Panthers or the Rams. Because we've known for years that there was a lot of hurt feelings over over that era. Look, if you can't tell with your own eyeballs that these guys are Hall of Fame worthy, then I would question severely your ability to judge good football. Because these guys are, you go back to Rodney Harrison's days, playing for the Chargers, Vince Wilfork. I mean, my goodness, he still had some life left in his legs when he went on to play in Houston. And Adam Vinatieri, good Lord, he set all kinds of, longevity records after he left New England to go kick for the Colts. So those guys are Hall of Famers, every one of them, based on the X's and O's, based on the numbers alone. They all three deserve to be in. I just don't think we'll see a Patriot-dominated class and all of them getting in at the same time, just because there just aren't that many slots that will end up getting voted upon. But I'm hopeful that at least one of them is somewhat, duly rewarded for their long, successful careers here.
Yeah, and I kind of have a hot take on that too.
Go.
I would not be shocked if Adam doesn't get in on first ballot, even though I think he deserves it.
Because he's a
I'm
kicker?
I'm a little bit weary about voters. Yeah, voting for a kicker to get in the first time.
Well, I would tend to agree with you, Patty. And I think this is where if anybody is deserving of breaking that mold, it is Adam Vinatieri.
Most definitely. And not to sound like a broken record. Like, I want to see Vince get in eventually, but just put Rodney in. I mean, there's Ed Reed, and then there was, Alamalu, Rodney Harrison.
Yeah.
And then a tier below that, like I've always said, like Brian Dawkins. I'm sorry, he's not as good as Rodney Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
Name me the one big play in a big game that he made.
Yeah.
You can't, because he never made it.
No.
But just real quickly to my prediction for this week, because, like I said, I want to get up so other guys can get on the line. I really want to see our team just do it this week in Miami, John. I want to see May and Mayo get their first win against the
I know, Patty. I love your eternal optimism, but it's woefully misguided on these guys.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game, though. I think the Dolphins will probably win somewhere around like 24-21 or 28-24, something like that. But man, I can't stand the Dolphins. They're my Yankees of the NFL. They always have been.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree with that. And the funny thing is that I was thinking this last week as I'm watching Buffalo beating Kansas City. I'm thinking, man, the Bills fans got to be looking at the rest of the AFC East and laughing their asses off. It's like, what has the AFC East become? They're dominating, kind of like the Patriots did a decade ago. And kudos to the Bills for turning it around after, kind of stumbling out of the gate, and subject for another day. Look, I kind of, I think the magic number here is 20. If the Patriots can get to 20, they're in the game. They got a chance to steal it. But if they don't get there, the Dolphins are going to roll. you have to figure out a way defensively to hold the Dolphins between 17 to 20 points max to have a chance. If you let the Dolphins get to 22, 23, 24, you're not winning that game. You're just not.
Yeah,
Patriots are not explosive enough on offense right now. So the only way you can do that is you've got to get some takeaways. You probably got to get a cheap score somehow, either on a short field after a takeaway or a pick six or a block kick. Or you got to come up with something different. It's going to take more than just doing your job. Oh, goodness, I'm sorry, but, that kind of has stuck on our tongue around here. You got to do more than just the basics to win a game on the road and get off the schneid in South Florida.
Yeah, and they're not generating pass rush against good teams. They're not slowing down the running game against good teams. And it's been 5 games, John, since they garnered a turnover against anybody.
Yeah,
that's got to change. And eventually the worm's going to turn. I hope it's this week, but I'm not banking on it. But I'll get off the line. It's always good talking to you, Johnny. I'll talk to you next week. Buddy.
I appreciate you, Patty. Thank you for the phone call. I wish I was a little more confident about that. And I'm not being anti-New England or anti-Patriot or, you're not waving the pom-poms or whatever you want me to do. I'm not doing that here. I'm just being real. This team has got flaws. We know this. This is week 12 in the NFL. You're 3-8. Okay? So you are what your record says you are. I believe one William Parcells said that years ago. And this team is improving. I think at times we can see that improvement. I thought, as I mentioned with Evan a little bit earlier, that they took a bit of a step back this last week because I didn't see the kind of adjustment that I think a high-caliber NFL team needs to make in order to be successful against a high-powered offense like the Rams have. I didn't see that kind of adjustment. I thought that the game plan, regardless of what Evan was talking about, why it's difficult to guard the Rams in man-to-man because of the way they run the bunch routes and they set screens and picks and things like that. Regardless of that, there's a way to beat that offense. There's a reason why the Rams are a 500 team, okay? And you didn't attack it well enough. And that's really the bottom line. And then you got to remember, the Rams were 3 and out, 2 of their first 3 possessions, something like that. And then they ripped off, 4 straight touchdowns? And I'm just like, where's the adjustment? They clearly made adjustments. Where are yours? And that's what I failed to see from this team. So when you go up against a Mike McDaniel team this week, who we all know right now is coaching circles, dancing circles around the Patriots, Tua Tagovailoa, dancing circles around the Patriots, whether he's got a toboggan that's screwed on straight or not. And I'm not really trying to make fun of that. I'm just being graphic, I guess, because he's had his concussion issues. But regardless of those, he owns the Patriots. What are you going to do to stop him? You've got to go above and beyond what you've done in the past. You got to throw him something that he hasn't seen. You got to run something he hasn't seen. You got to do something the Dolphins that Mike McDaniel is not expecting. And we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that. If we see that, I might feel differently. But, as Eldred says, you got to show me first, right? Isn't that right, Eldred? You got to show me first.
You got that right, Mr. Legend. How you doing today?
I love you, buddy. How are you?
Love you too, man. I'm doing pretty good. I'm off the rest of the week. Couldn't take next week off because of Thanksgiving. I had to take this week off.
Right. So are you working on Thanksgiving week?
I got to work. They want us to work on Thanksgiving Day, but I ain't doing it. Wow. I ain't did that in 15 years, John. I ain't about to do it now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, don't feel sorry for me. I have to work next week too, but it'll be. Yeah, I know. Matt, you want to tell him?
Sir.
Matt, you want to tell him?
He's working in the Bahamas, Eldred. Don't let him fool you.
Bahamas?
Yeah.
Hey, are you on change assignment? I go down there. Let's get some women in bikinis on that beach and stuff. Because I'm going to be right there with them.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. No, the basketball tournament, the college basketball tournament called the Battle for Atlantis. I'll be covering that next week. So pretty good assignment, pretty choice assignment over the holiday.
Oh, yeah. You can have your, what did it say? your Bahama Mamas and everything. Are you drinking?
Listen.
I'll have me a glass of hen while I'm sitting down
there you go.
watching and looking.
That's exactly right.
That's what I'll be doing.
That's exactly right. So it looks like we both might be working a little bit. But if you decide that's it, I'm not going to do it, then by all means, I think you've earned that right.
Yes, I'm not working Thanksgiving. I work the day after. I have to do that one, but I'm not working Thanksgiving Day.
You in a union?
I switch jobs.
Are you in a union?
No, sir.
Okay.
No,
all right.
sir.
I was going to say you tell your
switch to.
Well, I was going to say you could tell your shop steward to talk to me. I'm going to excuse you, but that's okay. So.
Yes, that's fine too.
All right.
But I'm hoping Rodney get in. Matter of fact, I wish all three of them get in at the same time. Matter of fact,
well, I'm holding out. I'm holding out hope that look, if you look at those three guys based on their football talent alone and what they've accomplished, over the last couple of decades, they're all worthy. They absolutely are. I just don't think they're going to.
And the Super Bowl win.
Yes,
that goes along
yes, and that was part of the reason why I brought that up, because I'm like, I don't think that the first Super Bowl era Patriots teams have gotten enough due. I just don't. And
I don't think so either.
No, and so
either,
that's the one that started it all. So I think it's time for the voters and people on the Hall of Fame committee to recognize the beginning of arguably, maybe even inarguably, the biggest dynasty ever in NFL history.
I think they should too. And just grant them guys in there, some of them writers, Durham, Buffalo, and all them other guys.
Oh, you know that. You know that. They will absolutely do anything they
sir.
can to shove it right up the wazoo of the Patriots. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, they would.
That's unfortunate. You need to have people that are more interested in the sport and what the Hall of Fame actually means. The Hall of Fame it's supposed to stand for talent and ability and whatever else the NFL wants it to stand for. It's not supposed to stand because, well, you guys cheated, to beat us so many years ago. That's not what happened. Number one, but that's still the.
No, it sure didn't.
That's the hangover.
Yes.
That's the hangover from everything that happened back then.
I hear that every day here too.
Yeah, I know.
Every day. Well, y'all were cheated.
But I would tell you also, Elder, that somebody who says that is just ignorant. And they don't want it, and they don't want to know the truth, because this is an easy argument for them to make. We say, well, we beat you in the Super Bowl, and they turn around and they look at it and say, well, you cheated. I'm like, well, you're not very smart because you don't know. I don't care, you cheated, and I get that argument all the time. It's like arguing with,
Same here.
It's like arguing with my 6-year-old grandson. Well, I don't care, Pop. I don't care. You cheated, You're not supposed to cheat. No, okay, well, all right, whatever. But you're right, they all three deserve it. They all three deserve it. I just don't think that all three get in. I hope I'm wrong.
That's what I'm hoping they do.
Yep.
Yes, I hope I'm wrong. Hope I'm wrong too. Me too. But I hope all three do get in.
Yep. Correct.
But I'm going. Like I said, I'm going. I gave my announcement to Evan the other day. Like I said, I'm still waiting on my jersey, and my hat. As soon as I get it, I take a picture and send it to him. I'm a man of my word. You know. But this other thing is, I don't trust Wolf. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Wolf and the guy Grow, because you was there with Bill, and like I said, this class here is like the way Bill drafts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
You got the same guys as you, like I've been saying for years. Y'all keep saying, well, I'm like, no, sir. You keep drafting the same guys.
Yeah.
You don't go after that athlete or whatever. And then I brought up this yesterday with PU that, okay, they saying the Chargers, after that trade in the draft this year was a robbery.
Mm-hmm.
So they three guys just produced, and they 7-3. We 3-8. Polk can't get more penalties. He ain't got two touchdowns and 2 hand snaps, and Baker only got 19 snaps. But you got Ladd McConkey and that Heave guy at the corner. They got Cam Hart, and they playing and they starting they playoff ready.
Mm-hmm.
With the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
And you let Thornton go, which I understand he haven't showed nothing. I don't still think they coach him right, and they didn't know how to use him because he got picked up the next day by Kansas City. Now they got 2-4-2 guys on the outside or whatever, and watch to see how they use him. And I'm watching to see, okay, if he flourished there, it's the problem is in New England. That's the problem because they don't know how to use him. They want to put him in the system instead of using the guys how they're supposed to be used.
Okay.
And that's my biggest gripe with this what you call. It ain't that I'm glad that they are competitive, but it's like Paul said the other day. Can it be just the other team is better players are better than what you got? You know, and they can't run with them, they can't play with them, and that's 99% what the deal is.
Well, sure it is.
And teams know how to draft.
That's right, and that's where I think that's the crux of the problem. The Patriots just don't have right now enough good players to be competitive with the upper echelon in the NFL. It's real simple, and we've talked about this before. It will continue to be a topic of conversation for the foreseeable future until the problem corrects itself. But this is a problem that began. This is a problem that started, as we know, probably 5 to 7 to even 10 years ago, with some of the failures. Okay, even so, you want to go back that far? We can go back that far. But that's the problem that we had with the previous regime that we need to figure out a way to kind of nip in the bud now, because it's sort of it's stockpiled to the point now where other teams have passed you by. You've hit on fewer selections, both via free agency and the draft, than you did back in the early 2000s. That's how the Patriots built themselves. That's how they built 2 Super Bowl decades with those kind of players. And then the last several drafts have just, man, I don't know what it is, but listen, if I'm a player and I'm getting picked in the second round by the New England Patriots, and especially if I'm playing wide receiver, I'm running the other way. That's almost like the kiss of death. It's almost literally. It's almost like the kiss of death. I mean, Tyquan Thornton gets released. Jalen Polk is struggling. I mean, I'm just like, wow, this is just you can't
pick the wrong one.
It's comical. It really is comical. I don't know. You couldn't try to be that bad if you really wanted to. And I think the Patriots just sort of
they've been like that for years, though. They've been like that for years.
Well, but when those picks are made, Eldred, I mean, honestly, when those picks are made, you're thinking, okay, well, pretty good guy, blah blah blah. Maybe you had a favorite or another type of player that you would have taken in that slot, but you can't really.
Everybody I picked do a whole lot better, even the ones in this draft.
Well, of course.
And you go back and check my track record.
Okay, all right.
And I'm saying that, and I'm saying that on the radio when they picked or before they picked. It ain't after. Well, look at this, man. No, I'm saying that before they when they get him at the draft and before the draft.
All right, well then
I want a DK. We got Harry.
Then Eldred, I'm going to nominate you for GM.
Hey, remember I kept saying, Mr. Kraft, on your show? Mm-hmm. Let me draft for you one time.
One time?
You don't have to pay me. I draft better than your GM that you got now, and one pass. And you have me come back next year, and you still wouldn't have to pay me because they're my team. That's my team.
All right. Well, when we get closer to the draft this next year, all right, I'm going to let you make the picks. All right, you can come on this program, you can make those picks, and then let's stand them up through the test of time through next year, and let's just see how well you do. All right.
Okay, we're going to do that.
Okay.
And y'all kept saying it takes 2 to 3 years.
And I agree with that, but I want you to pick who you want to pick, and then we'll see how the season unfolds. We'll keep track of it. Maureen, we're going to keep track of this for Eldred, and yeah, absolutely, once and for all, let's figure this thing out. Let's see how you do with it. All right?
Most definitely. Okay. Hey, and another thing.
Yep.
Your boy A.D. Mitchell.
Yep.
Seems to be coming on a little bit more now that Richardson back in there.
Yep.
You notice that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wanted him before we got poked.
I understand that. Listen, believe me, I know. Listen, I was a big fan.
Right there.
I liked A.D. Mitchell more than I liked Xavier Worthy, and Worthy's had himself a pretty damn good season for Kansas City. Of course, he's got Mahomes to throw to, throwing to him too. But I like both of those receivers. So
remember a couple years ago?
Yeah.
I said Quentin Johnson, and y'all laughed at me, but for San Diego, it took him a couple years, so now he's producing. Because Ladd McConkey's on his side, and he's producing down the end zone and stretching the field too. I'm like, damn, see what I'm saying?
All right. Well, you're exaggerating because nobody laughs at you, Eldred. Nobody laughs.
You want to bet?
No, not laughing at you.
Ask Paul now.
Okay. Well, Paul can laugh at you, but I know better.
Yes, sir.
I like your football judgment, Eldred. That's why I'm going to let you. I'm going to let you be, our playbook GM here. Okay.
Okay. I'll be glad to do that right when the draft starts, or before the draft.
Good.
Because I have my board ready too.
Right.
Yes.
And you need to talk to Maureen too, because frankly, we need more road tips from Eldred. We need more road tips from Eldred. So we got to work on that.
I got one I want to ask the people out there, and maybe you too, Mr. Legend. Why is it if you go down the interstate,
Yep.
you in the right lane, the slow lane,
Yep.
okay?
Yep.
You're coming up on a ramp. You're about a half a mile away from the ramp. You got idiots in the third, in the passing lane or the second lane.
Yep.
Instead of them getting behind you and take that ramp right there, they want to shoot all the way across 4 lanes and shoot across the exit ramp.
Yeah.
Explain that one to me.
I see that every day.
I'm running that every
I
day.
see that every day on my commute. I absolutely see that every day on my commute.
so
and I actually have
you
some
know,
sympathy for the
happening
truck
over
drivers.
there.
Yeah, I do. I do.
Yeah.
Funny, but most of the people who do that, and I'm well out on 495. Okay, when I'm heading to campus on the day, and the cars that from the left lane go across the middle lane where the truckers are to get to the right lane to take the right exit. You know where they're all from? You know where they're all from? They're not massholes. They're all from Rhode Island.
No, sir.
Yeah.
Well, but the ones down here, they got North Carolina tags on. Some of them got Georgia, some of them got Maryland, and I'm like, darn, if my truck went a little harder, I'd have hit you. But see, one thing they keep forgetting, trucks got cameras in it now, so you can't say, well, he's the fault. They got cameras now.
Yeah.
And like I keep telling everybody,
Yep.
you get within 100 feet, that truck automatically stops, and you're going to kill somebody in the back of that truck.
God, I know.
So they're going to make a jackknife, and that's what starts the accident.
Eldridge, rules of the road. All right, we're gonna work that out with Marine. You the man. Happy Thanksgiving, Eldridge. Appreciate you a lot, my friend. Doug Kide covers the Patriots for the Boston Herald. Been a good friend of the program for a few years as well. Doug, thanks for hanging in. Really appreciate you being with us today for a bit.
Absolutely. How's it going, John?
Good. It's going well. So do you see the same thing that Eldridge just described? When you're on the highway and denizens of the great state of Rhode Island crossing in front of these trucks to make the exit on the next exit on the highway?
You know what I noticed about Rhode Island drivers most of all is that they pass from behind people. Like they're coming up behind you and then they pass you, so that you can't see that they're passing you before they pass you.
Yeah.
It's everyone in Massachusetts gets out in front, puts the blinkers on, then passes you. Rhode Island, it's
I
reckless out
refuse
there.
to
It's
listen
probably
to
not
two
true
of you
on
bash Rhode Island drivers.
Come on. We got to bash somebody around here.
They're not called massholes for no reason.
Well, that's also true. And I'm a card-carrying masshole, and I'm proud of it, too. All right. Okay. We'll move on to that one. But, I just thought that was just kind of a little quirky thing as well. Hey, there's a little politeness involved before we tell people to go bleep themselves. So that's all right. It's what we do. So let's kind of pick it up with, at least the big event of the day. And I mentioned this with Evan a little bit earlier, but, Cole Strange's return to practice based on, what Christian Barmore did last week, and then he got into the game for 21 snaps this past week. Do you expect to see Cole Strange play this week, and where does he play?
With this regime, this seems possible. And almost anything seems possible because Alex Austin returned to practice 3 weeks ago, and now he's finally been activated to the roster, didn't play right away. But with Cole Strange, I certainly wouldn't be surprised. If Christian Barmore can play after one practice, having blood clot issues, one practice since last January or whatever it was, then yeah, it's possible with Cole Strange as well. And as for where he plays, there's a spot for him at left guard or at center right now. And Michael Jordan and Ben Brown, those guys have been holding down the fort as best as they can. Ben Brown especially, really tough situation, coming over from the Raiders, playing in a game after practicing just twice. But both of those guys, as far as I was looking at the PFF grades today, both of those guys really rank near the very bottom of their position groups this season as far as the PFF grades have gone. They're really struggling in pass protection. So I think that when Cole Strange is ready, when he's a full go, when they feel comfortable putting him in there, I would put him in there at probably left guard or center. I might put him in at left guard just because that's the position that he's played before. That's the one that he's more comfortable in rather than forcing him in there at center. But I would start him absolutely before the season ends.
And one of the things that we kind of mentioned earlier was we kind of feel like the coaching staff, as it presently exists, likes Michael Jordan in that spot. So do you whose position do you interrupt here? Do you come in and start snapping, even though you're learning a new position basically for Ben Brown, or do you come in and move Michael Jordan around and make him the swing piece? I mean, you're finally starting to get at least some semblance of continuity on this offensive line after juggling balls the entire year, and now this is actually the best problem you've had for the offensive line in a long time. Is how do you figure out a way to put your first round pick from 2022 back into the lineup?
I think it would be at left guard because remember a few weeks ago when we saw Michael Wenu playing at left guard. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that didn't stick for a game, but that tells me that they were at least willing to experiment a little bit and willing to take Michael Jordan out of that starting lineup if it comes down to it. So I do think that this could be a good opportunity for it. The offensive line, it has to be better in general. They've been a little bit better with Drake May at quarterback than they were earlier in the season with Jacoby Brissett, but there's still absolutely room for improvement there. So, I would put him in there at left guard. If they really like Jordan, then I would certainly consider him at center as well, but it just seems like a better fit for him there at left guard. And then you can get some decent athleticism there, too, between Vidarian Lowe at left tackle and Cole Strange at left guard. That it could be helpful.
Sure. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'm just, listen, the versatility is something that's always been preached about that offensive line, and that's how teams really help themselves with depth, as we all know, is to have guys play multiple positions. So here's a guy that can play, apparently now, multiple positions. If he's been working out with David Andrews, like has been reported or alleged, where do you put him? And, I would think you'd want to try to put him with a position of strength. But, listen, we've seen this coaching staff do things that, quite frankly, I wouldn't have expected. Barmore just came back a week ago. I would never have expected him to see him play first week back, and yet there he goes and he gets 21 snaps. And I guess mixed bag, in terms of a review from last week, but the fact that he's in there playing, up, I guess, and getting his feet wet and learning how to kind of do things all over again, I think it's great that he's kind of learning on the fly. Kind of takes me back, and I mentioned this earlier in the show today, but, it's the same philosophy, really, that I've always described to when it comes to playing Drake May. I wanted him to play so he could learn on the fly, and it seems like kind of like that's what Barmore did a little last week, and maybe what a guy like Cole Strange ends up doing. So there's a little imbalance there in terms of philosophy, I think, in terms of putting guys in the lineup.
Yeah, and I mean, with Bill Belichick as head coach, you could always kind of anticipate that he would bring guys along pretty slowly when they were coming back. It would take a few weeks for them to get back in there. But, 100%. It seems like with Gerard Mayo, they're much more willing to thrust guys in there, learn on the fly. I think, Alex Van Pelt plays into that as well. And, I mean, like you said, I never would have expected Christian Barmore to play 20-plus snaps with one practice under his belt after missing whatever it was, 10, 11 months of football, going through a health-related situation, with blood clots. Like, I wouldn't have thought that was possible, but clearly they thought he could, and he did it. And, he came out of it, like you said, mixed results. It didn't make a major impact in the game, but he wound up with 3 tackles, was able to contribute, rotate in there a little bit, and now I think that we'll just see his role grow as the season goes along now, too.
Sure. Doug, what was the biggest reason, in your estimation, you think that the Patriots lost that game to the Rams last week?
I mean, when it boils down to it, it was the defense. I think the defense really failed them in that game. Jonathan Jones said after the game that he's got to be better for the Patriots. He was certainly someone that should have played a lot better. He got burned by Cooper Kupp on the 69-yard catch. Obviously, you could throw coaching in there as well, since they called it zero blitz and he had no safety help over the top. But he also got burned by Puka Nacua for another touchdown in the game. I personally disagreed with the philosophy of having Christian Gonzalez play the majority of the game on the boundary and to not match him up with either Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp. It was a plan that worked well against the Bears, and for me that it worked well because there wasn't a weak wide receiver that the Bears could put on Christian Gonzalez. Between DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze, someone was going to be worthy of that coverage. When you put Christian Gonzalez on the boundary against the Rams, and they can just throw Demarcus Robinson in there and just kind of like set it and forget it, I think that's where you run into issues, because then you can let your other 2 wide receivers run free. So that's another big element. So I do think it was majority defense and really coaching on defense as well. I think there were some decisions that Gerard Mayo might want to have back on offense too, but I mean, Drake May performed. Certainly the interception at the end didn't help, but for me, it really just does boil down to the defensive performance.
Sure, and I think there would be a lot of people that would agree with you. And of course, you mentioned Drake's performance, which was, he had, his best numbers yet, coming off, I guess, overall, his best start thus far. Is there a danger for him to maybe hit a plateau here just because of the personnel that he has surrounding him? How can maybe this coaching staff best keep him moving in an upward sort of curve here in an effort to be able to attract others to come to this roster in the offseason?
I think one big thing would be having some continuity at wide receiver. And I think that we're getting closer to that, where Kendrick Bourne had a big game on Sunday. Demario Douglas performed well. Kayshon Boutte stayed pretty consistent. And then obviously targeting Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper in the passing game as well. So for me, I think to continue that upward trajectory, I think there is a potential plateau with his supporting cast on offense, just because it is one of the weaker offensive lines in the NFL. It's one of the weaker wide receiver groups. But if you can keep those starting three of Kayshon Boutte, Demario Douglas, and Kendrick Bourne, and Drake May can really start to develop some chemistry with those guys. He talked about it a little bit today, where he wants his wide receivers to be playing football.
Yeah.
He doesn't necessarily want them to go exactly what's on the play call sheet. He wants them to see what he's seeing. It's some of the same stuff that we used to talk about with Tom Brady. And I do think that was probably the cause of that interception to Demario Douglas, where maybe Demario Douglas was doing what was on the play call sheet. Mm-hmm. He was running the exact route that was called, but Drake May expected him to do something different on that play, to cut in front of the safeties, behind the linebacker, hit him over the middle there. So I think that with more continuity, with a little bit more predictability at wide receiver, you will start to see that. And it stinks that maybe a guy like Jalen Polk or Javon Baker doesn't play as many snaps, if that is the case. But overall, I think it is about developing Drake May. And like you said, it's about attracting other talent this offseason and maybe not having to overpay so significantly for a guy like T. Higgins in free agency.
Yeah, you flat out got to have guys that want to be here, because I wouldn't say you're going to get pennies on the dollar for them, but it's still you still have guys that are motivated to be here, to play with a talent that can put the ball in their hands so they can do what they do best. And everybody's always, look, you sign a contract, but everybody's always playing for the next deal. The contract that you want to be wary of is a guy who's signing his last deal. You want somebody who's playing for his next deal. That's when you're going to be able to really maximize, I think, the want to in terms of being in a particular place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one kind of underrated element is you start to see last week after the game against the Rams, Sean McVay really talking up Drake May. Today, Mike McDaniel from the Dolphins, he's really talking up Drake May. When you see the analysts, guys like Dan Orlovsky or any of these other quarterback experts that are out there really tweeting about Drake May, talking up Drake May, yeah. I think that's the kind of stuff the players see at this point, too. So I think that anything like that is going to be helping to attract that talent. And like you said, those guys who are wanting to play for the next contract and say, hey, that's a quarterback who's on the up and up. That's someone that I want to play for. So anything like that right now is just really beneficial to the Patriots.
Well, as far as this game is concerned, I think we certainly can see it, right out there in front of everybody, that the Dolphins need to win to keep whatever flailing post-season hopes they have alive. They certainly looked a little bit better last week against, the Raiders in getting a win, even though they fell, flat the previous few weeks. But there definitely is a pathway for them to play their way back into serious post-season contention. And you would think that the last thing that they would want to do is be able to stumble at the hands of a team that, frankly, they've owned over the last couple of years. I mean, I think, Tua can almost call the Patriots his daddy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matchup that I don't necessarily expect the Patriots to win, but they have at least proven that they can stay competitive. Like a game against the Rams, I think it does help a little bit that you play last week against Sean McVay, now you're playing against Mike McDaniel, a little bit more of a similar offense that those guys are running, so maybe you don't make some of those same mistakes that you made against the Rams and Matthew Stafford this week against the Dolphins. But no, I mean, this is definitely a highly motivated Dolphins team a Dolphins team that wants to prove that they are legitimate, a Dolphins team that definitely is on the trajectory potentially to make the playoffs if they can continue stringing together these wins. So the Patriots really have to come in with the mentality of trying to play spoiler. And It's tough to do. They have not played well in Miami over the last few years, or really historically. It's a little bit easier, obviously, in November than it would be in September, but it's still a place historically, even in December, that gives the Patriots fit. So they've got to get over that hump, and maybe we'll see with Rod Mayo in there, it'll be a little bit different. But no, I mean, they definitely have to prove that they can win in Miami, because that is really tough for them right now.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to your observations. Why has it been so hard for them to win there? Why do they have this phobia?
It's a really good question. I mean, I'm sure that the difference in heat doesn't help. Yep. Even when it's like December and maybe it's a little bit more mild in the 70s or low 80s, still going from Boston to there certainly doesn't help. I don't think it's a massive, I don't think it's crowd noise so much. I don't think it's necessarily any specific thing about the teams or the stadium, because it's been different regimes. It's been different coaching staff. So it's a really good question. The only thing I can possibly, come to a conclusion on it is that it's got to be weather related. And even that, I mean, Bill Belichick tried that in the past of having them stay down in Miami for the weekend, and it still didn't work. So I don't know. It is very interesting that specific place with that specific team gives them so much trouble.
They sure do. And you've got a motivated Miami team because they don't want to stumble. They've got allegedly tougher games on down the stretch that they're going to need to win in order to stay, right in the hunt for a potential wild card spot on down the line. So it's an important day for the Dolphins. The Patriots are definitely going to have the target on their backs. Doug, thanks so much for spending a little time with us today. It's always appreciated.
Absolutely. Anytime, John. Great talking to you.
You too. Thank you, buddy. Doug Kyed, Kyed in the last name. It's at Doug Kyed on X. Follow his stuff from the Boston Herald. Good guy. And, accurate. Very accurate. Hard to argue with just about anything with what he's gone through, what he said about this team, and the way that they've got things set up for the foreseeable future. I mean, look, it's all kind of laid out there right now. You want to do what you can to keep Drake moving forward. You want to try to get back some of your walking wounded, which they're doing slowly. You want to try to continue developing younger players, the few that you have that seem to be willing to be developed. You want to see if you can get anything at all out of the ones that are disappointing. Jalen Polk, stepped to the front of the line on that one. So there are still things to accomplish for this year before we get completely to next year. And I know so many want to turn the page. I got asked that today at school. I'm like, guys coming up and saying, well, so what do you think they should do about next year? What should they do about, the receiver? What should they do about this? And I'm like, hey, I'm going to worry about that in the offseason once this year is over. Right now, what I want to see continued improvement. And not just from the players. I want to see continued improvement from the coaching staff. I want to see adjustments made. I want to see, the light bulb go bing on top of the heads of the coaches and the players. And anytime I get that light bulb to turn on, I'm going to feel like, okay, now you're making that step in the right direction. And we just haven't seen that often enough. That's a big reason why the team is 3-8 thus far. You're going through some growing pains here, and nobody's used to them. There is a way to get out of those growing pains. You need some more personnel, but you also need to coach them up better. So it's a two-pronged fork right now. Two-pronged. One prong has got to help the other. And if one prong stays bent, you're not going to be, you shouldn't tolerate it. You shouldn't tolerate it. That's why, how this team ends this year and how they address the offseason as soon as the offseason occurs, it's hugely important for the immediate future of this team and this franchise. Let's go back to the phones here. And our buddy Todd in North Carolina with us. Hey, Todd.
Hey, John. How are you doing today?
Good, buddy.
Good to hear. So I'm driving and I'm watching, and every time I see a Virginia license plate, I would like to hit the dirt and, find a place to crawl and hide because they go too fast. And, yeah, they're the type that'll not only come from 4 lanes over, but they'll be behind you honking go over 4 lanes, come back, and cut you off to get the off ramp.
Yeah, I understand. Just to piss you off. I get that. That's kind of like Rhode Island drivers around here. So, yeah, I understand that completely. What I want to do is I want to put Eldred, on Route 495 here and where you're traveling as well. I want to put Eldred in a tank.
Me too. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'd be very cool with that. I think we would want to put a camera, on the front window of that tank, just so we can, I think that would be, justice duly served.
And the reason I called in is exactly because of Eldred.
Okay.
I'm wagering a Birdie's Peanuts selection of peanuts, pecan brittle, whatever, that he can offer a T-shirt or something that he can draft better than the Patriots draft team for the next year's draft.
Well,
that's my wager.
Okay. Well, we're okay. That's fine, and we can accept that, I guess, as a show here. I like that. We'll stack what Eldred does with what the team does, and we'll see how he fares, because I think it's time, for him to achieve, legendary status in his own right. Don't you?
Oh, heck yeah! I love. There's nobody who has the passion of Eldred. He's so tuned into the team, and he's got that, I don't know if it's a sixth sense. He'll tell you stuff like, the team's going to end up failing in this area this year. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you look and it's like, dang, Eldred was right.
Yeah, no word of a lie. I agree with you. And I've known this about Eldred for how many years I've been doing this show now? 24, 25 almost? Yeah, too damn many is exactly right. But I have fun doing it because I get to talk to you guys like you and Eldred and Patty and a lot of the others that have been regulars on the show throughout the years. I enjoy this. I look forward to it because, frankly, I value your opinion. You follow the team closely enough to the point where your opinions and the statements you have to make have validity because you watch the games. That's what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in just, straight pom-pom waving. I want to know why you think the way you think.
Yeah. And with respect to Polk, didn't Booty have kind of a similar first year? I know he's a 6th-round draft pick, and we shouldn't be comparing the two, but I seem to remember when Booty first was doing his thing, they loved him in the preseason. It's like, oh, my God, look what he can do.
Yeah.
And then came around to the year, and he's like, because I think the game is so different. The NFL game is so different than the college game.
Yeah.
It's faster. Yeah. It's more complex.
Well,
everything requires just a higher level of execution.
You may have
I don't think that the young guys are ready for it.
You may have just answered your own question. I think that's part of the reason why we saw him struggle last year, because he just wasn't quite ready for the professional game. But now that he's had a year and a half now to learn how to be a pro, we're starting to see a little bit of production out of him. So, he had a few things hanging over his head before he got here, but I think he's in earnest, working his butt off to try to be a better player, a better professional. I think we're starting to see that. So I think you kind of answered your own question.
Well, see, I think that's why I'm getting to is I want to wait for Polk. I want to give Polk at least one more year,
okay,
just to see if he can have that development. I know there's a lot put on him, a lot expected of him.
Yep.
And, I think I kind of agree with Eldred. We always seem to get this weird, kind of a slow, pondering guy for the outside, which I think that's the old school game. I think you're thinking 80s, 70s, that just doesn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need those fast guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need the guys that stretch the field. And not only north-south, but can stretch the field east-west. But how many times they put Tyreek Hill in motion,
sure,
and your defense has to find him.
Sure.
And he's moving. And that's what the Rams did it to us too, right?
Yeah.
They got guys with speed and skill
yeah.
that can move laterally. So you've got to be able to stretch the field in all directions. And the only person I can see doing that is our wonderful little slot guy, and that's it.
Yep.
That's the only guy that I think we got right now with that kind of speed and ability to, unless we get our DB to play some more offensive snaps.
Yep.
But it's just hard, John.
I actually think you've hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah. And with respect to defense, I was predicting this year that they'd regress, and I think that's kind of what's happened there. They just didn't have the core people. We used to have depth. and the depth just kept getting eroded and eroded and eroded, and it's gone, John. It's just there's no depth there. We take an injury on either side of the ball, and it's over, and that's kind of sad. So I don't know. I think we're going to have to be patient and give them a year or 2 or 3 to get that back up.
2 or 3
competitive next year.
2 or 3, Todd won't do it. You got a year. This is a very competitive league. It's all about winning now. You're in the business to win games, which has disturbed me about a lot of the philosophies that we've heard from this regime. You're not here necessarily to develop. You develop by winning. It's a little bass-ackwards maybe, but to me that's what it's always been. And maybe that's unfair. It could very well be unfair, but that's just the business of the NFL. And I think the Patriots sometimes, I feel like sometimes the Patriots kind of lose sight of that. So that's why, we opine the way that we do.
Yeah. Well, on that note, John, I got to get my boy to piano class.
All right.
I'll talk to you next week.
You got it. Thank you, Todd. Appreciate you. Very quickly, Bridgestone, the official tire of the New England Patriots, is proud to partner with Sullivan Tire, New England's headquarters for quality Bridgestone tires. Visit sullivantire.com to find a location near you. And, of course, we all know this, right? But Massachusetts is made for everyone, okay? For leaf peepers, corn maze strollers, regatta lovers, pumpkin pickers, anyone else you can think of. Pumpkin coffee drinkers, too, for that matter, Can I get paid for that? Where's my NLI money? Anyone else you can think of? Yeah. Come to where there's something for everyone this fall. Massachusetts, where everything is made possible. Plan your trip at visitma.com.
A real woman could stop you from drinking.
It has to be a real big woman.
It's time to go around the NFL with football guru Russell Baxter.
From now on, your name is Flounder.
On Patriots Playbook.
The one and only Russell Baxter joined us here inside the Playbook. Good afternoon, Russell. How are you today?
I'm good. Now, you did a Bridgestone promo before me. Does that mean you're tired of me?
No. Yeah, I know.
There's always a dad joke attached.
Hey, listen, that's okay, because when you're a dad, you're expected to do dad jokes. I find that sometimes it's really tough for me to do dad jokes anymore. Do they have granddad jokes?
No, I just know that dad jokes rhyme with bad jokes.
Well, that's also very true.
Yeah.
All right, so let's kind of start. The first thing I actually start with is non-Patriot related, but I guess it kind of is because this team is is a neighbor in the AFC East. But man, the Jets seem to be they just can't get out of the way for making news that just can't be anything but negative because you fire the coach in midseason. They let the GM go today. And now there's reports out there from several sources that the owner suggested benching Aaron Rodgers after the head coach was fired and didn't get what he wanted. And so who's running the show?
Well, to me, it seems like Woody Johnson is running the show.
Clearly.
And here's what I don't understand, okay? And I know for some of our media brethren, their favorite game to cover is the blame game.
Yep.
And they try to pick one person, and I know Aaron Rodgers is an easy target, and I'm certainly not absolving him of anything that has gone wrong this year. But riddle me this. Was Aaron Rodgers around in 2010 when the Jets last made the playoffs?
In 2010, when they last made the playoffs? That was 14 years ago?
Yes.
He would have been. Yeah, sure, he was around.
Yeah, he was the Super Bowl winning quarterback.
For Green Bay that year. Yeah, of course. Okay.
And that year, the Packers almost faced the Jets in the Super Bowl.
Right.
And the Jets lost to Pittsburgh in the AFC title game.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is this. And you'll understand this more than anyone else. If you're going to finger Jerry Jones for the ineptitude in Dallas and the failure to get back to a Super Bowl or even an NFC title game since 1995,
nuts.
Why isn't the finger pointing more at the owner of the Jets for the longest active playoff drought in the league.
No, that's fair. That's very fair. So that's kind of why I led into it, because it does seem like Woody Johnson he's doing all the string pulling here. And for the life of me, I can't imagine, I don't know if they even want to, but I can't imagine Aaron Rodgers going back to that next year.
Well, here's the other thing, too. If Aaron Rodgers is doing or has done everything he's been accused of, in particular by one media person, and I won't get into his name, okay? If that is true, and, I mean, there's been no source to this whatsoever, it's just pure speculation. If he isn't able to do this, John, who would be the only person to empower him to do that? It would be the owner.
Well, yeah, because he's the one that writes the checks, and sure.
Right, exactly. So you just said it. If Woody Johnson is indeed running the show, and this team can't get back to the playoffs in a league where everybody gets back to the playoffs for the most part. Now, Denver's not been there since 2015. Okay, I get that. The Raiders haven't won a playoff game since 2002. I get all that. But again, the longest active drought, numerous head coaches, numerous starting quarterbacks, one winning season. They haven't had a winning season since 2015 when Todd Bowles was there, and they finished 10-6 but missed the playoffs.
Yep.
So this is the miserable stretch. And the idea that this franchise was going to bring in one person to save the ship is ludicrous, because that's never happened. It's never been one person come in and save a franchise. Okay? You have a better chance of a coach coming in to save a franchise than you do a quarterback, a defensive end. I mean, how many times, you'll remember this, in the late 80s, I kept on hearing this. The Minnesota Vikings are one player away from getting to the Super Bowl.
Heard that a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Mike Merriweather was a big trade for them. Herschel Walker, we know all about that. Well, I'm still waiting for the Vikings to get back to the Super Bowl. They haven't been there since, you ready? 1976.
Crazy.
I was a junior in high school.
Yeah, so was I.
The last time they were even appeared in the Super Bowl. Okay, Miami hasn't been in the Super Bowl in 40 years.
Jeez.
So the idea that you can fix things, and this isn't just football, this is all sports.
Yeah.
Okay? Maybe with the exception of the NBA, because you only have 5 players on the court. I understand that.
Right,
and you have a limited roster.
Yeah.
But the idea that one person is going to come in, walk on water, raise his hands, and we're going all the way, it just doesn't happen. We have seen some of the greatest performances in history by an individual, and they've gone on to win the league MVP that year, and it doesn't translate.
Right.
So I always talk about, it's now only happened one time in 58 years that a quarterback led the league in passing yards and won the Super Bowl the same season. That was actually Patrick Mahomes in 2022. So this is not a one-man show. It's not a one-man fix. But you're right. They can't seem to stay out of the news as more and more of this gets unearthed about what has gone wrong. And what is really fascinating, and I'm not going to, again, mention names of certain people I have worked with who are in the media, who are flat-out New York Jets fans, and they are calling this the worst season in franchise history.
It's not. It's not even.
And, of course, it's not.
They've had a bunch of them.
Yes, there has. I remember a 1-15, which is pretty awful.
Sure.
Okay? But the fact that they are so ingrained and so personally involved in it has them saying, I mean, I heard one person say this was the most disappointing season by a franchise in sports history.
Oh.
Now, I wasn't around for the first Olympics.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm willing to bet there was probably some disappointment there. With one of the teams.
Probably so.
Okay? So, I mean, the craziness.
Yeah.
But again, that's what we live in. We live in the quick fix.
Yep.
And all that stuff. And meanwhile, let's just talk about the teams that are in the playoff mix, because we had some craziness last week.
Sure did.
We had two 1-point games. We had a 2-point game. Chris Boswell in Pittsburgh is now Pele.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And we had the showdown that the Chiefs are not undefeated anymore. The Cowboys are headed south. The Lions, and God forbid they play another AFC team.
Yeah, they've totally dominated. Yep, right.
By the way, later in the year they play the Bills,
which I'm going to love to see.
Oh boy, that's got just fun written all over it.
I'll be honest with you. I really like, and I'm not saying this to be anti-Kansas City at all, because I think the Chiefs could definitely. I think they've got a legit shot at three-peat, and I've thought that all year long, no matter how much Patriot fans don't want to hear that. I would love to see a Detroit-Buffalo Super Bowl, just for the fact that somebody's got to win it, and it'll be the first time they've ever won it.
Right, and for the Lions, who are the only team in the NFC never to go, they haven't won an NFL title since 1957.
Right.
Which was 2 years before I was even born.
Same here. So now that ought to tell you how old we are, right?
No, well, like older than 21.
Yeah.
So,
times 3.
You know this. In the 1950s, the league was dominated by two franchises. Since I've never been to the Super Bowl, the Cleveland Browns and the Detroit Lions.
Right.
They almost annually played each other for the title. They both won 3 championships in that decade. Now that's when the Browns finally joined the NFL. Before they were in the All-America Football Conference, where they dominated all 4 years that was in existence.
Yep.
So, but yet a Lions Bills, I can you think about this? The Lions fan base and Dan Campbell, the Bills and their fan base jumping off tables and eating wings in the city of New Orleans.
Yeah, that'll be wild. If you ever go to a Super Bowl or ever wanted to go to a Super Bowl, especially where your team isn't involved, I would say the Lions Bills, if it gets to be that, would, especially in New Orleans, that'd be a good one to go to.
Right. I have to go off the top of my head, and I'll probably get this wrong. The last time 2 teams met in the Super Bowl that neither one of them had won one. And it might have been, okay? And I'm going to get this wrong because I'm just doing it. It's a wing job here. It might have been Patriots Bears.
Yeah.
When
sure.
Both teams.
Yeah.
Now, the Bears had won NFL championships. They'd never been to the Super Bowl.
Never been to a Super Bowl. That's right. That's right.
Obviously, the Patriots.
Yeah.
Remember, 3 road wins to get to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
In the playoffs, over the Jets, over the Raiders. Matt Millen and Patrick Sullivan won't be having any coffee soon. Is that? If you remember what happened there,
I remember. Yes, sir.
I'm sure you do. And then them going down to Miami, which I think they hadn't won a game down there since the mid '60s.
Yes.
And they ran right over their running game and so on. That was a really opportunistic team.
Correct.
Again, I'm going to check it after I get off the air here with you, but it might be New England, Chicago.
Yep. Okay. That's a good guess. Anyway, that's a really good guess.
Well, I mean, listen, lack of a social life sometimes.
All right. Well, you mentioned teams that are heading the other direction besides the Jets, and I looking at the schedule this week. There are 4 games that I've looked at that I'd say are potential difference makers for the remainder of the season. In other words, or let's just say separation games. You could separate the haves from the have-nots in these games this week, in Week 12 in the NFL. It just so happens that you have 3 of them in the NFC, 1 in the AFC. I got 49ers, Packers, because the 49ers are, they're teetering. They're at 5-5 overall.
Yes, they are.
I got the Cardinals and the Seahawks, who, Cardinals are 6-4 and maybe a little bit better than people give them credit for. Seahawks 5-5. And you got the Eagles and the Rams. And the Rams, who we just saw this past week, they still look mighty potent on offense when they want to be, especially when the Patriots, come up with a really semi-silly game plan defensively that really helped the Rams, I think, in that game. But, both of those teams need to win to stay in the hunt. And then in the AFC, that's the Monday night game this next weekend. You got the Ravens at the Chargers. Separation games. Is that an accurate assessment, you think?
No, I think so. Well, especially the three you talked about on Sunday, John, because they all involve all four NFC West teams.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you haven't seen the standings lately, Arizona is 6-4, and the other three are all 5-5.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So, and you talked about the 49ers teetering. I have some pieces coming out in the next couple of days about ranking the playoff teams from a year ago, their playoff chances this year. Okay? And it's not based on percentages of them getting in. It's based on other factors, such as who is left on their schedule. Not strength of schedule, but the opportunity. For instance, Buffalo is all but in the playoffs because of the fact that they've won 9 games and the rest of the division has won 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
And even though Kansas City has the better record, Kansas City could, if they drop another game, they could wind up in the dogfight.
No question.
In the AFC West, because
no question.
the Chargers and the Broncos are both above 500.
Yep, coming, charging hard. Yep, absolutely.
Like that. Meanwhile, Baltimore has already lost as many games as it did all of last season.
Mm-hmm.
They're on the cusp of already they give up the fewest points in the league last year, John, 280. They've given up 271 already.
Yeah.
Okay? And they have the Chargers this week. And they don't have a great record in the conference, and that's the kind of stuff. I mean, they're 4-4 in the conference. Okay, so when you start getting bunched up, now they did beat Denver, which is obviously a plus for them. Okay, but they lost to Cleveland. They obviously just lost to Pittsburgh. They did beat Buffalo. Okay, but they lost to the Chiefs. So there's so much to solve here. And that Monday night game, and we just saw the Chargers get out big on Cincinnati, let Cincinnati tie the game.
Yep.
Okay, which was funny. The Chargers had not given up more than 20 points in a game all year. But I don't think they scored as many as they did the other night either. So, which I think speaks volume about Cincinnati's problems on defense. But the NFC West is really intriguing. And I'll go back to the 49ers for a second. This is obviously a playoff rematch from a year ago when they met in the divisional round. The Niners came back and beat them 24-21.
Sure.
San Francisco is 1-3 within their own division.
Ooh. Man.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to win it.
They lost to Seattle. They lost to the Rams. They lost to Seattle at home, and they lost to Arizona at home. Okay? So now we're starting to thinking about, and I know 7 teams make it in each conference, but here's another conference game for the 49ers. I think it would surprise people to know. You ready for this, John? The Niners are 2-5 versus NFC teams.
Jeez. Wow. So they've been feeding on AFC teams. That's crazy.
So, they're doing okay against the AFC.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's not a good sign when you're starting to get down to this time of the year in terms of tiebreakers,
right,
and so on. So another conference loss would drop them to 5-6, and then 2-6 in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so when you say what you said about the Sunday games and so on, you couldn't be more spot on. And we'll see what happens with Seattle. Seattle's reeling. I know they came back and won the game the other day, but before that they had lost 5 of 6 after their 3-0 start. They're still a very erratic team. They've got a first-time NFL head coach.
Right.
So it's going to be very interesting to see. And again, Monday night, the Chargers, who should be able to take advantage of that Baltimore defense. I know Baltimore didn't give up a touchdown last week, but of course they also turned over the ball 3 times against the Steelers. Pittsburgh somewhat has Lamar Jackson's number, for lack of a better word, but there's so much pressure on that Baltimore defense or Baltimore offense now because the defense has been, and it's not really a shock if you look at the off season this year and how much they lost on that. Patrick Queen went to the Steelers. Geno Stone, Pro Bowl safety, went to the Bengals. Jadeveon Clowney left. Their coordinator left. So as much as they have Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, they're piling up big numbers. Okay, it's been a different story on the other side of the ball for them, and it's not really a Ravens team we're used to seeing.
Right. No, it's not. I want to ask you, obviously, about the Patriots and the Dolphins, this week. But overall, before I get to that point, what are your? Now I've lost my computer. Just froze here. I had a question for you, and I just lost it. That figures, right? Old age doesn't help you sometimes, but when your computer fails you, you're completely lost nowadays, right?
The answer is to get to the other side.
Listen, this chicken ain't going anywhere. Trust me.
Listen, that's always the fallback. Just like if you can't think of somebody's phone number, you just say 867-5309.
Yes, exactly. Right. Jenny. Who can I turn to? All right, let's go ahead and get to the Dolphins and the Patriots. It's right on the tip of my tongue, too, and my computer's not helping me here. Okay, so at any rate, last week, what we saw with the Patriots against the Rams, and I think the Rams kind of figured themselves out a little bit more. The Patriots didn't adjust as to what we thought they might adjust. The Dolphins, this team, has certainly had it over the Patriots over the last few years. Mike McDaniel, Tua, we know that he has had great success in his young pro career against New England. But now the Dolphins have something legitimately to play for. They need to continue to win because they've got a bit of a pathway to a potential playoff spot. And I'm just wondering if you think that really matters in the overall scheme of things, especially with the Dolphins really still being an imperfect team.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it. Listen, they went through not having Tua Tagovailoa for 4 games. They've had a problem as of late, especially the last 4 games. They've given up at least 200 yards of offense in the second half.
Yeah.
But they've managed it. They did something they hadn't done all year last year, John. They won 2 games in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, they've got some rough spots ahead. Okay, they have obviously this week. And I'm not going to say it's not easy to sweep a team because we know contrary, it's easier to sweep than it is to split.
Yep.
Especially when you beat the team 7 out of 8 times like they have the Patriots. So they're trying to crawl their way back. I mean, I posed this question a couple of weeks ago that could we see an 8-9 team in the AFC?
Mm-hmm.
Because, and now we have 7 winning teams because what Denver did to Atlanta last week and then the Chargers, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, they obviously. Now, I do know they have to go to Green Bay on Thanksgiving night.
Yep. And
I don't even know what the temperature is going to be, but I'm guessing it's not going to be 75.
No, it'll be chilly.
Yes, okay. And, I'm not going to get into the whole numbers about them playing in cold weather and so on, but that's a tall task for anyone, is to go up there at Lambeau Field, except if you're a team in the division, because one of the things that has Green Bay a little behind the 8 ball, and they're 7-3, as you know.
Yep.
But they lost at home to both Detroit and Minnesota. 2 divisional home losses. Now, they beat the Bears in Chicago last week. That kind of evened things out. But, this could be one of these years where we see like an 8-9 or 9-8 in the AFC.
Yep.
And maybe someone in the NFC wins 10 games and doesn't make it.
Yeah, I can see that. That's part of the reason why I went that direction, because I know that the Dolphins, anything short of the playoffs, that's going to be a miserable disappointment for a team that so much was expected of before this season started. I mean, they were actually, I think, kind of considered a division favorite, with all due respect to the Bills, before the year started. And, of course, then Tua got, his block almost knocked off. And then, they've had some other injury issues, and teams have adjusted. And I don't know if Mike McDaniel really deserves the heat or if he's just trying to kind of learn on his own because he's a young coach. But they need to win this game. If they lose this game to New England, that could have far-reaching repercussions for this franchise.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it. And they're going to already need help, obviously, to get in. And, Denver's sitting at 6-5. And the game that could wind up really coming back and haunting Miami is that loss at Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Okay, now the Colts are 5-6. Okay, so if it's a 2-team tiebreaker and it's head-to-head, the Colts would go in place of the Dolphins. Now, I'm not going to try and project, but the Colts play the Lions this week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that could be more like the Lions versus the Christians, except for the instead of the Lions versus the Colts.
Yeah.
As I was pointing out, and something I'm writing this week, the Lions have played 3 teams in the AFC South
mm-hmm.
and have scored a combined 130 points.
Ooh. Wow. Good grief.
They put 52 up on Tennessee. They put 52 up on Jacksonville.
Right.
And 26 against the Texans when they were way down. John, I know you know this. The Lions had 645 yards of total offense. I had to look at it twice. I thought it was Michigan State.
Yeah, right. That's crazy.
600 yards of offense is not something you see in an NFL game on a regular basis.
No, you don't, but they're capable. That's why I love the Lions. I think the Lions are a very entertaining football team.
Yes. Oh, and by the way, I have to go back and correct myself. The Niners are not 2-5 in the conference. They're actually 3-4.
3-4.
But still,
okay.
They have a losing record in the conference.
They're teetering.
And a loss to Green Bay could really set that 1-3 divisional record is mystifying because of how good they've been against their NFC West rivals the last 2 or 3 years.
Right. Yeah.
And the fact that they lost 2 of those games at home. Now, I know it's been a battered roster, and Christian McCaffrey just got back, but watching Seattle drive the field on them late in the game, Geno Smith, and Seattle's got some offensive talent.
Mm-hmm.
But watching them drive the field was very much like Arizona did to get the game-winning field goal about a month ago.
Right, for sure. Hey, Russell, I remembered what it was I was going to ask you.
Okay.
It was about the Steelers. How the hell are they 8-2?
Because they have found ways to win on offense, on defense, and special teams.
Okay. All 3 phases of the game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
In fact, I was just writing, and again, who knows what's going to happen.
Right.
Last year, Chris Boswell was 29 out of 31 for the season in field goals. That's pretty good, wouldn't you say?
Yes. Absolutely. No question about it.
In 10 games this year, he's already 29 out of 30.
Okay.
Now, I bring that up because the NFL record for field goals in the season, any idea?
Yeah. No.
Do you know who it is?
No, I don't actually.
I'll give you a hint. It was a guy who was more known for one team, and then he wound up going to another team, and he kicked 44 field goals.
Okay.
In 2011.
Yep.
44. It was David Akers.
Akers? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or as Boomer used to call him, David Green Akers.
Yeah, Green Acres, which is a good nickname.
Yeah.
Russell, I appreciate you, as always. We won't be here next week, the day before Thanksgiving, because I'll be on assignment on the road for college basketball duties. So I'm going to wish you and yours a very happy Thanksgiving, and we'll try to we'll reconnect 2 weeks from today, if that works for you.
Absolutely. And I've said this on your show for, I think, for all 23 or 24 years. If you're betting on Thanksgiving, take me
and the over. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will totally concur with that one. Thanks, buddy. I always appreciate you.
You too. Have a good day.
Thanks. You too. The one and only Russell S. Baxter at Bax Football Guru on X. Get all of his stuff on Fansided. That's where he puts all of his work out there. A couple of emails that I wanted to read real quick before we wrap up the show. I'm just kind of looking here. People are looking for the the newsletter that Fred's putting out now, so they're putting their emails out here. I want to weed through it a bit. Here's one that comes from Daniel, who says, guys, feels like a lot of the Patriots' defensive lapses are stemmed from problems with schematics and matchups. Why is Tavai even matched up with Nakua once during the game? Is that something the Rams are doing or something that DeMarcus Covington is failing to see? It's honestly, I'm thinking it's a little of both, to be honest with you. I don't think he's failing to see it. I think that, this is something they wanted to try to see if they could get it to work. It clearly didn't. My biggest issue, and I mentioned this at the top of the show, failure to adjust, or not failure, well, yeah, but at least slow to adjust. Not recognizing enough to adjust. or stubbornness to stay, what it is you're doing. I guess you could describe it any way that, that suits you. But I didn't see any adjustment. Just didn't see any adjustment. This one I wanted to read real quick because it has my name in it. Tyler from Ludlow. It says the 2024 Patriots Thanksgiving Dinner Awards. Below are awards to be given by John Rook to Patriots players that best match the dish descriptions for the 24 season. Did you see this one, Maureen? Okay. He says an example is Grandma's green bean casserole. Grandma took the year off from cooking after this being a dependable dish every year, and you miss it now that it's gone. And a player that might receive this award is Matt Judon. Mom's mashed potatoes, as dependable as it gets. They rarely let you down, but are not the main course that everyone will be raving about. Burnt dinner rolls. You were disappointed overall, but you just have to throw them away and move on. Baked mac and cheese. This dish is new to the table, but is a welcome addition that you hope to see annually for years to come. And Cousin Bert's Brussels sprouts. Cousin Bert must have a cooking class because last year this dish was just meh, but this year has improved greatly. And smoked turkey, the showstopper, the MVP of the meal. All right, if I've got to give awards, Grandma's green bean casserole, I'll go with Judon. Mom's mashed potatoes, dependable as it gets. I got to dependable. Christian Gonzalez, because he's good. And so are Mom's mashed potatoes, by the way. Burnt dinner rolls, disappointed overall. You have to throw them away and move on. Ooh. I could get in trouble with this. Jalen Polk. Baked mac and cheese. This dish is new to the table, but is a welcome addition that you hope to see annually for years to come. Drake May. First name that pops into mind, right? Okay. Cousin Bert's Brussels sprouts. Cousin Bert must have taken a cooking class because last year this dish was just, this year is greatly improved. Keyshawn Booty. Smoked turkey, the showstopper, MVP of the meal. Drake's going to get a second one on that one. What do you think? How'd I do? Is that okay, Maureen? Hey, really good email, okay? Really good email. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. Appreciate the thought. All right. Our thanks to Russell Baxter. Our thanks to Doug Kide, Easy Lazar, Evan Lazar, and Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel for joining us on the program today. As I mentioned a little bit earlier to Russell, no show next Wednesday because I'll be away on college basketball duty. But we will have programming here on Patriots.com and Patriots.com radio to preview the Colts game next week. Then I'll be back in time from my sojourn for the game on Sunday, and then we'll recap the Colts and talk about the bye week 2 weeks from today. That'll be our next live edition of the Patriots Playbook. So that's what we'll have and when we'll have it. Happy Thanksgiving to all who celebrate, to everyone who tunes into this program for taking the time to listen to us either live here on Patriots.com or download the podcast, whatever it is you do. I thank you for taking the time to spend a little time with us. You're always welcome to the program. You're always welcome to send me a note whether you think I'm full of it or not. I'd love to hear from you. All right? Maureen, thank you, as always, for putting it together. Same Pat's time, same Pat's channel. 2 weeks from today will be our next live edition of the Patriots Playbook. See you.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.